Hello farmers and aspiring farmers, thank you for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. This is Agricultural New Directions Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. You would find that most of our Zimbabwean farmers do participate in commercial maize production, and at the same time we have those farmers who have financial resources that support seed maize production. So in this very episode, I've taken the liberty of inviting experts. I do have Wendy Matashu-Madzura, an agronomist, who's going to be taking us through that side of variety selection. I'm also going to be joined by Liz Mkojo-Msimu. She's going to be looking at soil test analysis, chemical application and use, and also effective fertilizer usage. Also, the farmer here at Greener Farm is going to be joining us, giving us management tips on how they manage to establish such a beautiful crop. Wendy, thank you so much for taking your time to come on our platform today.
Thank you so much, Wadza, for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, as we get into our discussion, Wendy, we are standing before maize that is already headed towards senescence. We now have cobs, we now have the tassels. The only part that is left is full development of the cobs. Can you talk to us in terms of variety selection tips, aligning them to the region we are in today? We are in Banket at Greener Farm.
Thank you so much, Wadza, for that very pertinent question. Farming in Zimbabwe has become a formidable business. With that said, our farmers are implored on to make sure that when they are selecting even their crops and their varieties, they are aligned accordingly. So with variety selection, when you are a commercial farmer, it also goes hand in glove with your resource endowment. If you have resources like irrigation, then it means you can establish a crop throughout the year, multiple cropping programs, which is to say you can plant the earliest possible time you can go into the field and start planting. So what we are seeing is that with maize, commercial maize production, the ideal and best time to establish after the winter season is from October. The first week of October, second week of October, right through until the end of October. That's when you get to maximize on the heat units that your crop requires for it to grow effectively and give you high yields. So the farmers with irrigation, as you are seeing here, this beautiful crop which is now at pollination, you are seeing the strands of pollen there on the silks. It also shows that they planted on time. And now their crop is entering a stage when the heat units are starting to plunge down, but their crop is already at a developed stage where now they are entering the grain filling, and then the yield is going to be as expected.
Now, Wendy, talk to us in terms of the varieties that are maybe conducive for this environment. We are here in Banket, and also talk to them in terms of commercial maize production, seed maize production, and basically their requirements. You're an agronomist. Looking at this healthy crop, you can have a rough estimate of the fertilizer that was used, be it basal, top dressing. You can tell the amount that they might have applied. Talk to us in terms of that.
Indeed. So what tends to happen is that in Zimbabwe, we have 5 agroecological regions. So the 5 agroecological regions differ in the amount of rainfall that is received, the climatic conditions that are there in terms of the heat units, as well as the altitude of that particular area, which also speaks to the days to maturity of the variety of choice. So when you're selecting a variety, yes, for this particular field, because it's not 100% rain fed, they have irrigation. So the element on them relying purely on the amount of rainfall that they receive is eliminated. So it also speaks to the altitude of the area, where in terms of their cropping plan, if they want to come in with a wheat crop on time, which is to say within the first 2 weeks of May, they need to make sure that they plant in October. Once they've planted, it will also grow fast, because this area, this Banket area, which is in region 2, tends to have higher heat units. So their high heat units will also speak to their crop growing well and then giving them the yields that they desire. So the variety selection tips include the rotation plan that the farmer has, guided by the cropping program. Are they going to come in with wheat? Are they going to come in with barley or another crop? So it speaks to the days to maturity of the variety that the farmer is going to choose. So you need to marry the two.
And you would find that generally in maize production, we have those farmers that are said to be maybe those who are into seed maize production, and there are not very many of them in our country. And also we have commercial maize farmers, those that get into large hectareages, some even going up to 1,000 hectare, a single farmer. Talk to us in terms of the major pitfalls that may occur for our farmers in seed maize production.
So in terms of seed maize production, like we always say, it starts with the right seed. So the important thing is for you to understand that seed production is also an asset or an element of crop production that on its own speaks to what the farmer at the commercial level is going to get. Saka kana tichirima mbeu isha seed production isezviya, chakakosha ndechekuti kune varimi vakasarudzika vanenge vapiwa chitsvambe chekurima mbeu yakananga kuzonotengwa nevarimi vanonotenga muchitoro. Saka ivavo varimi vembeu yakasarudzika ivavo inonzi seed vanenge vachitariswa kuti vane zvikwanisiro zvinoenderana here kuti varime seed. Zvichida panenge vachida michina, nekuti kana uchirima seed hasi zvekuti unozononokera uchitaiona ndakamirira kunangana kuti azondikweretesa. Zvinenge zvichida kuti unge une zvikwanisiro zvese, kana iri planda, kana uri muchina wokupfapfaidza mushonga inonzi bhumu, kana zviri zvimwe zvinhu zvinenge zvichidiwa pamunda, unofanira kunge unazvo zvese panzvimbo. Kochitariswa zvakare nyaya yemabiridziro. Panyaya yeseed production unofanira kunge une madiridziro akakwana. Kana usina madiridziro hatidi kuti mbeu izoomerwa mumunda isi tichitarisira kuti inofanira kuita potential yonopa umurimi ada kuzoidyara mberi chipo chegore pamusoro. Saka nyaya yemadiridziro yakakosha. Toonawo zvakare kuti paseed production ipapo vamwe varimi zvichida havatozivi kuti vangaziva sei kuti chibage chavari kuona iseed here kana kuti haisi. Saka kana titarisa isusu mbeu yedu yeseed tinoona kuti kune mamales nemafemales. Saka mamales nemafemales aya tinenge tichitira kuti isusu pollination yedu yatinenge tichida kuti iitike inenge iri designed zvokuti toda kuti male iyi ndio inogadzira mbeu ye727, female iyi ndio inogadzira mbeu ye659. Saka izvi nezvizvi ndo zvinofanira kusangana. Hatingotenderi kuti muite self pollination mumunda kana tigadzira seed sezvatinoita kana iri commercial crop. Saka kana tichiona isusu mbeu ichigadzirwa kana tichiiona mumunda unoona inenge isina muchekechera, unenge wakagurwa kumuromo. In English we say detasseling will have been happening. So after detasseling you find that all the females won't have tassels. The only crop that is allowed to have tassels are the males. Saka ndopaipa munozoona imimi kuti panenge pane mitsara miviri mitatu inenge ine muchekechera, kubva kwaita 6 mitsara inenge ichiuya isina muchekechera. Zvinenge zvichiratidza kuti pane mamales nemafemales. Saka mamales ndo anenge ane muchekechera, ndo ega anobvumidzwa kuti ange ane muchekechera, anenge achizobvumirwa kuti aitise pollination kumafemales anenge ari mumunda. Saka chimwe chinonetsa varimi vanenge vachizorima seed inyaya iyoyo yedetasseling. Nemhaka yei detasseling iprocess inoda vanhu, inoda labor yakawanda. Saka process iyo inoda kuti unge uchimema nekucherechedza kuti kwauri kurimira labor yacho yakamira sei. Hakuna makwikwi here palabor yacho ekuti zvida kune ngoda, kune goridhe, kune fodya inotorawo vanhu zvakanyanya. Saka kana kune makwikwi iwayo kana kuti kune mablueberry ari kuenda kunotanwa kana peas, saka zvinoda kuti unge uchicherechedza kuti nguva iri kuitwa detasseling labor yacho uchaiwana kupi. Dzimweni dzenguva varimi vanototyaira ndima refu kunotora vanhu kuti vauye kuzoita detasseling iyoyo nekuti vanogona kutofoira kunzi mbeu yenyu yafoira nekuda kwokuti vanenge vasina kucherechedza zviga izvozvo. Saka ndo zvimwe zvezvinhu zvinoitika.
Thank you so much, Wendy, for such a detailed presentation. I like that you looked at the fact of the differences we have between commercial maize production and even seed maize production. You also spoke to us in terms of those farmers that are looking to get into 500 hectares, 1,000 hectares of commercial maize production. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you so much, Wadza. It's always a joy to see serious farmers like the one we have here.
On that note, we have come to the end of the first segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. Today, we are coming to you from Banket at Gwina Farm, where we are looking at both commercial maize production and seed maize production, taking it as a model farm where some of our Zimbabwean farmers, our viewers who are watching from home, can take notes and copy. Now, Zimbabwe, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore, to 0772-807-506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Make a follow-up on this episode and more, and leave your comments and suggestions. They are most welcome to us on our YouTube channel, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. We are also now available on X, formerly known as Twitter. It's at Agribusiness 110. Now, earlier on, prior to the break, I was joined by an agronomist, Wendy Madzura. She was taking us through the variety tip selection, how you select your varieties within any agroecological zone you are. At this point in time, I've taken the liberty of inviting Elizabeth Mukojo Musimi, a senior agronomist as well, working within our crop protection industry and different farmers to ensure that as Zimbabwe we are food secure. Liz, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Wadza, for having me.
I want us to look at issues surrounding soil tests and analysis within maize production in Zimbabwe. Your sentiments, your views, its importance when it comes to producing maize.
Thank you for that question, Wadza. So the most important thing is for when they do take a soil test and they get it tested, the most important thing is to ensure that the pH is within the right range. That's the first thing that we want to check, because within the right pH, the fertilizer is also efficient in terms of fertilizer use efficiency. So you want a pH of between 5.5 and 6.5. And also just knowing your soil, knowing what is the weakness in the soil to help you choose the right fertilizer. So you will find that when I talk about the fertilizers, there are various types of fertilizers that are available, base of fertilizers especially. So that will then suit what the soil would have shown us through the soil test. So it's important for a farmer to know exactly what the weaknesses are in the soil.
Looking from soil test and the relationship between your pH and fertilizer usage within the soil, I want us to look at fertilizer that is conducive for maize production. Talk to us in terms of that. And while at it, I want you to demystify the misconception that might be out there, where farmers are saying that these foliar fertilizers have come to replace the granular fertilizers. You can do without our traditional fertilizers if you use foliar fertilizers. Talk to us in terms of that.
Okay, so on this particular land was that they used cereal blend 623-23, that's the NPK, and they used 400 kgs per hectare. I'll go back to what I said earlier to say the soil test will show you what you need. So there are a number of cereal blends that are available. There's also a 628-23, that is to say if your soil has got a phosphate issue and you want to try and correct that, you can use a cereal blend 628-23. So we have some of our commercial guys using that basal fertilizer. Yes. So you find that you have to choose the basal fertilizer based on what the soil test has shown you. There's also basal fertilizer such as double D, and then our normal double D, our normal D that farmers use. So it's important for a farmer to know the weaknesses of their land, because that's the only way that they'll be able to choose the right basal fertilizer to use. And then we come to our top dressing. For our nitrogen, the nitrogen gives the grain its plumpiness. Okurema kuyawadza kana takwenda kumusika pepe. Tuda kuti mbeu yedu inorema kuti tiwane mari yakawanda. So the nitrogen kana ikaiswa yakakwana iri kubatsira kuti mbeu yedu iremi. Patiri kuenda ku GMB pepe inonosvika ichidhingura scale. Kana yadhingura scale taakudini takuwana mari yakawanda. So it's important for the farmer to ensure that they hit the nitrogen units that are required to make a 10-ton crop. So for a 10-ton crop, you need about 180 to 210 kgs of nitrogen, which brings me to your next question. Kuti pane vaya vari kuti ukaisa mafoliar fertilizer zvatopera 210 kgs the nitrogen dzinopinda sei mukagubhu kakadai dzigopinda zve muchibage umu tigokwanisa kuti tiite miguri yakaita sei yatiri kuona apa hazviiti. Saka ipapo ndipo tinotanga kutaura kuti aiwa mafoliar fertilizer hatisi kuti akashata ba, asi zvatinoita ndezvekuti ari kushandidzana pamwe chete nemabasal, exactly, nematop dressing fertilizers atinawo kuitira kuti mbeu yedu isvike patinenge takatarisira pa 10 tons per acre. So what we're really looking at is what is a foliar fertilizer coming in to do. So there are 16, 17 essential nutrients that a crop needs. So you find that tunana boron tuya, tunana zinc tuya, tunana molybdenum. Azvizowanike zvese basal fertilizer, azvizowanike zvese top dressing. So it's important for the farmer then to come in at when you're just when the maize is just germinated, to come in with your Nutri-Start. When it's at the vegetative stage, to come in with your Nutri-Grow. And then when it's now coming into tasseling, you come in with your Nutri-Bloom. That way you are ensuring that at the different growth stages, you are taking care of all the full nutritional requirements. Ndogara ndichiti manutrients akadofana nemuoko wangu. Kana ndikabvisa mumwe 1 kudai mvura inogona kurasika nepanapa. Nekuti atichatozari kana chachiri chigubhu chinogumira ipapa. Saka pakashayika boroni nezingi yoyo. Nyangwe tesa nitrogen, phosphorus nepotassium zvakakwana. Chibage chedu achatosviki kupi? Moshinorwa nevanouchika mbeu, moshinorwa nevemafertilizer kuti hazvina kusvika nekuti hamuna kupa chirimwa zvachinoda kuti chisvike pa 10 tons. Saka tikutaura kuti isusu as a farmer, you're supposed to know the different stages and you're supposed to cater for the requirements of the crop.
Thank you so much, Liz, for such a detailed presentation and taking me back to high school. I'm now imagining the periodic table, all of the elements that you were citing today. Now, Liz, as we round off this segment, we have issues surrounding chemical use. I would want to say effective and timeous chemical use. We struggle with weeds, we battle with weeds. And when it comes to insect pests or diseases, we have the 4 armyworm. So I want you to touch on issues surrounding chemical use, especially herbicides, and control of the 4 armyworm. Talk to us in terms of those 2 things as we close this segment.
So it's important for a farmer to know the weed spectrum that they struggle with in their farm. That's the first and most important thing. So pre-emergent herbicides, you know exactly what you're struggling with. You choose the herbicide that suit that. In this particular land, S-metolachlor and atrazine were used as pre-emergents. And then post-emergence, in this area, shamba grass is an issue. So they want to come in with a herbicide that takes care of shamba grass. But there are products now that are cocktails that can take care of grasses, shamba grass, and broadleaves, the likes of Sweeper 260 OD. It will come in, which is what they used here. here. It will come in and clear everything, so that you don't have to struggle and come in with atrazine. You see. So it also reduces even cost to the farmer, because now you're coming in with one product and it's taking care of your weed problems, and then you have no issues. What I want to emphasize when it comes to herbicides, especially with the seed and commercial, from what Wendy was saying earlier, you need to know what your seed company is giving you. Yes. So because there are a number, they will have to approve the herbicides or the insecticide that you use in their program, because the various genetics, the various genetical combinations in those seed maize crops, they have to be approved. Some of them will react to some won't. So then if you find that you just take and use, that's when you will say this chemical does not work, but it's not really the chemical. It has to be pre-approved by the seed house.
Okay, in terms of 4-armyworm limbs, talk to us the chemical use that you might want to highlight to our audience on home that is effective to control 4-armyworm. The strategies, the tactics and the chemicals that you have to put together to address my issues the 4-armyworm.
So chandinoganisha ndechekuti divisire murimi rekutanga makumbo ake ngaagare ari pai ari mumunda achiona kuti mumunda make chii chiri kuitika. Paanongoona kuti gonye riya raita sei akutopinda akudini akuspray. Tinokurudzira varimi kuti they should scout a lot. From the scouting, that's when they decide to come in with the insecticide. So there are a number of insecticides in the market. There is emamectin, which will take care of what we call maleps, kanoti makonye yaya, anosanganisirana na 4-armyworm. Emamectin has been I think one of the most effective active ingredients in taking care of 4-armyworm. Then there is yatinoti emamectin jo. Ine emamectin lerufenuron. Saka SRE2 aya imwe mashandira ayo kuuraya chipuka chimwe chete chatiri kutaura ichi. Saka zvikachibata munongoziva kuti hanzichi vanhu vakawanda zvinodini basa rinoendeka. Isusu tiri vanhu vatema nimbe taifarira nokuti taibatsirana basa roreruka. Saka ndo zvimwe chete mushonga kana uchinge wabatana unonobatsira kuti chiya chiri kuda kuti chipedzera gore redu chiya chibva chakurumidza kuita sei kuuraiwa. So emamectin duo is also another insecticide. In this particular land, I think they used Optimeter, which is a combination of emamectin again with acetamiprid. So if they are sucking pests, tunobva twauraiwa futi, because we are using a combination insecticide.
Thank you so much, Liz, for such a detailed presentation. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you so much, Wadza.
There you heard it, viewers. We're looking at chemical use, effective chemical use, and the proper fertilizer regimen that supports good maize development, be it commercial maize or seed maize. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in that third and final segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, farmers, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. Today we are discussing a pertinent issue, eradication of hunger and attaining food security and food sovereignty as a country, as Zimbabweans. We are looking at ways in which you can undertake your maize cropping venture, be it seed maize or commercial maize production. At this point in time, I've taken the liberty of inviting Mr. Stanley Fife. He is the manager here at Gwina Farm in Banket, Mashonaland West. Stanley, thank you for joining us today.
Welcome.
Yes, as we get into our discussion, Stanley, I would like to ask you, in terms of the hectarage you have, commercial maize, seed maize, and your planting dates, what was it like for you?
Thank you. For seed maize, we have 50 hectares and 88 hectares. And for commercial maize, we planted 230 hectares. Our planting days, we started planting our early crops. We started on the 25 October.
Okay, 25 October.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Looking at your hectares, I also want you to highlight on the varieties that you have for both the seed maize and the commercial maize, and also general irrigation that you use, the irrigation technique that you used, and also the millimeters or the amount of water that you were targeting per week. I understand that in October it was dry. We weren't receiving any rainfalls. This season was endowed by threats from the El Nino-induced drought. But still here we are today standing in front of a beautiful crop. Even if you look at your seed maize, it is beautiful. So I want you to talk to us in terms of the varieties that you used, the modes of irrigation, the millimeters you were targeting per week or per day or per given period of time.
Oh, thank you. I can start with commercial maize. Commercial maize, we started our early crop. We started on the 3rd of November. Tiri kunyanyodiridzira nemapivot. Of which kuti tionyatsokuona germination yakakwana taitageta 54 mils asi ataisa kamwe chete taita dzekusplita first 24 mils then another the balance 30 for a week. Saka pasvondo ipapo tinenge tichitarisira kumera kwe crop yedu like this block ndo block ratakatanga kudyara rine 22 hectares. Ndo first block ratakatanga and then ndo rari kutotarisira kuti ndo richatipawo high yields tichizoenda tichipedza. Saka last block ratakapedzisira ku commercial maize takapedza pa 20 by 1st December tanga tapedza kudyara commercial maize. Asi takatanga kudyara takatanga kuplanta seed maize. Takatanga ne seed takatanga pa 25 October tikaipedza by 29 October tanga tapedza ndobva tatanga kudyara 555 takaidyarawo 2 days. Saka pa 30 by 30 October tanga tapedza kudyara seed maize. Tanga kusvika pa 1 December ndo patakapedzisao commercial maize.
Thank you so much, Stanley, for taking your time to come onto our platform and educate the audience there at home in terms of commercial maize production and also seed maize production. Tichipendera chirongwa mashoko amungada kukanda kumusha yekurudziro maererano nekurimwa kwechibage zvakamira sei?
Thank you. Kuvarimi vese vechibage ndinoziva kuti murimi wese chaanotarisira igoho. Asi kuti unyatsowana goho rakanaka zvinhu zvakawanda zvaunofanira kutarisira. Unofanira kutsvaga mbeu yaunoona kuti iyi mbeu inondiitira. Unofanira kutarisawo nevhu rako. Zvakare unofanira kuvawo yatinoti timing pachimwe nechimwe chaunenge uchiita. Like pakudyara kwatakaitawo chibage takatanga kutatarisa machinery yacho yatinoshandisa inodawo inonzi calibration. Saka unocalibrata machinery yako ukatarisirana neplant population yaunenge wakatarisira pachibage. Zvinova ndizvo zvokutanga zvaunonyatsokugonawo uchitarisa. Ungazoshora kuti mbeu yandatenga iyi haina goho asi nyambisa unenge usina kunyatsokutarisa kuisa izvozvo mupfungwa mako. Saka semurimi anogona unofanira kutanga watarisa izvozvo. Like zvatakaita isusu takatanga takalibrata umu takashandisa monosem 8 row monosem ndiyo yatakashandisa tichitageta 70,000 plant population yataitarisa. Asi finally takazosvika pa 64,000 ndo yatakazobata ndo yatiri kutarisana nayo. Saka with this crop tikutarisirawo kuti 10 to 12 tons per hectare hatiishayiwe. Iyi variety 659 yatakatarisana nayo.
Thank you so much, Mukoma Stanley, for taking your time to come onto our platform. From me, your host, Manyore, I'm also on Instagram. It's a W Manyore, and the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.